Warning. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect that of the HHN TV or its constituent entities. Furthermore, some parents may not find this content suitable for children as it contains explicit language and subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, everybody. I'm Drew Duncan. The show's fired up, and we are live. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Take a device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan on iTunes, iHeart. Wherever you're listening, I am there. Plenty to get to today. We're going to be talking about Khabib and McGregor. That is still lingering, especially from Khabib. We're going to be getting into that. Jerry Jones on him being a GM, saying, and I quote, nobody can do it better than he can. We're going to be getting into that. CeeDee Lamb, by the way, $136 million 4-year extension with the Dallas Cowboys. The NFL is going to be using new equipment called Strike to measure field conditions. We're going to be getting into what Jared Mayo has to say about Drake May. We're going to be talking about Juju back with the Chiefs. And if we've got time, we're going to get to Magic Johnson and Anthony Edwards. Look, I want to talk about the Conor McGregor-Khabib fight and Khabib's quote for one reason and one reason only. Because for whatever reason, that entire situation has been completely misconstrued. I don't know where the false narratives came from. I don't know what happened. I don't know if Khabib is just that good of a manipulator of the situation. I don't know if it's a media problem, if it's a perception from fans, but this is the absolute reality of the situation. First of all, Khabib said, and I quote, I remember when I came inside the cage. When the cage closed, I remember I looked at Dana and said, today you can't protect Conor McGregor. Dana asked me, what? I said, today you cannot protect him. He didn't hear me. It's okay. After the fight, we will talk. It was a very emotional time, but at the same time, it was my feeling. I really wanted to bite someone's heart. Do you have that feeling in your life? I just tried to bite his heart. End quote. You know, I remember when that fight was going on, one of the big publication deals, one of the big things with it was when Khabib was on McGregor and he was punching him and it was talk now, and McGregor's all, it was just business. I guess we forget how that entire thing started in the first fucking place. Khabib and his dudes surrounded one of McGregor's guys at a hotel, and they got into it. McGregor heard what happened, hopped the flight, told Khabib to get his ass off of the bus. Khabib refused to get his ass off of the bus, and so McGregor said, fine, you don't want to come out here? I'm going to go in there. He grabbed a chair, and he threw it at the bus. Now, I am not justifying Conor McGregor's actions. I want to be clear. I am not saying that what he did was okay, and I am not saying that what he did was necessary. I am saying that while Khabib is running around town continuously acting like he's a hero, acting like this was his big conquest, acting like it was all McGregor that was doing all the jawing and all the talking and all the this and all of that. I'm not saying that what McGregor ended up saying about Khabib's family and all that was okay, because it wasn't. What I am saying is all of this came after Khabib did what he did. And everybody, and I mean anybody who hasn't lived under a rock, knows that Conor McGregor is not exactly known for his restraint. The guy's not exactly known for thinking things through. Khabib got exactly what he wanted. He got in McGregor's head. He knew the minute that McGregor showed up and did what he did, at the arena, throwing the thing at the bus. Khabib, I believe, in that moment knew that he had Conor McGregor. Dead to rights. I think Khabib thought to himself, got him. Because now McGregor was thrown off of his game. But folks, I need you to understand something, that gym rivalries in MMA have always and always will be a thing. I mean, you go back to the days of Ricks and Gracie. I mean, there were stories about these guys just showing up, no rules, no ref, none of this BS, none of this. We're not doing this. We're not going to the cage. We're not doing any of that. What we're going to do is we are going to handle it right now, mano a mano, my man. Everybody else back the hell off. We're going for it. It's always been a thing. Hell, I interviewed Amanda Nunes. Understand, she is from Brazil, where the Gracie name is synonymous with the word legends. And she's not necessarily a fan. Why? Because their gyms are rivals. Now, has it always gone to this extreme? Hell, man, if we had cameras back then the way that we do now, we'd probably be seeing a lot of that stuff. But as it stands, showing up at somebody's front doorstep is pretty fucking extreme, don't you think? I mean, it's kind of a no BS policy. We're not going to get into it. We're not going to go and handle it in the cage. We're not doing any of that BS. We don't need the media involved. We don't need none of that. I'm here. What's up? It has and always will be a thing. But everybody acted like all this BS was just brand new. And it wasn't. And this thing with Khabib and McGregor had already been kind of going on. But Khabib made sure that it hit the tipping point. He wanted the fight from day one. He got what he wanted. He got the win. And then, of course, directly after the fight, I'm sure everybody remembers the mass brawl that happened. I mean, it was almost a riot-level situation. It was, at the end of the day, both McGregor and Khabib that lit this on fire. But there are people out there that still believe that Khabib was all just an innocent bystander and the bus thing was just McGregor going crazy one night. It's not what happened. It's not what happened at all. And I, for one, am sick of the bullshit narrative that's out there. And look, I'm not a McGregor apologist. I've talked about it before, how McGregor needs to give back to the brand that made him who he is. Holding up the visions. Ever since the Mayweather thing, it's just been one horrible thing after another. All kinds of allegations. All kinds of nonsense, not training. I want to fight. I don't want to fight. I'm retired. I'm not retired. This and that and the third. I'm not a McGregor apologist by any sense of the imagination. I'm honestly, for the most part, really done talking about McGregor. Because this whole thing with Michael Chandler, I mean, is it going to happen or not? I'm to a point with McGregor where it's like, dude, whatever, bro. Right? But I am a journalist. And a truly impartial journalist. That's our job. And that was forgotten a long time ago by a bunch of pundits who have their favorites, who have their people, and all this other BS. I don't get down like that. This is the way that it really happened with McGregor and Khabib. And while there were no shortage of people that were out there that were really done with McGregor and they were anxious to see him lose and they feel like he got his, look, bro, that's fine. I'm good with it, Brody. If that's the direction that you want to take, then by all means, Captain, go right on ahead. I don't really give a damn. It's no skin off of my ass. But if you want to say that Khabib had nothing to do with what happened, and if Khabib wants to run around acting like he was an innocent little Boy Scout, well, that's just not how it went down. The narrative changed because Khabib won the fight. And because Khabib won the fight, a lot of people began misconstruing what was really going on in that situation from day one. Khabib had been doing everything he could to that point to try and get McGregor out. And he was willing to go to an extreme to make it happen. But if you want to go to extremes with a guy like Conor McGregor, you better be ready for the extreme to happen back. And so all this, you can't protect him now, Dana, it's just such nonsense. Honestly, I respect Khabib for winning that fight, but I don't respect him for not getting off of that bus. And I damn sure don't respect him for all of his dudes. How many of those guys were there surrounding one dude? Come on, man. Anybody else would be called a bully. But because he's got the win over McGregor, nobody's going to call him that, will they? It is what it is. It's done. It's said. It's over with. I wish, honestly, that we would quit drudging this and bringing it back up. I don't know why this thing about every 4 or 5 months rears its ugly head all over again. But it really is nonsense. And to be honest with you, I'm over it. And as far as the McGregor fight goes with Chandler, I don't see it happening before the end of this year, regardless of what he wants. I think Dana himself has reached his boiling point with McGregor, and he's over it. Bro, we'll get to you when we get to you. It didn't used to be the case. In 2017, 2018, it would have been, all right, man, whatever you want. 6 years later, nah, bro, we're not doing that. You screwed me out of a lot of money, bro. We're holding off. That's the reality. So Jerry Jones has a fantastic quote. I mean, the guy just cannot get enough of himself, can he? Dallas Cowboy fan, you want to know what part of the vendetta is? This right here. Here is a direct quote from Jerry Jones, and I quote, "There's nobody that can come in here and do all the contracts and be a better GM than I can." End quote. Okay, buddy. Whatever you want to frame it as, Broham. Look, he has been the GM since 1989. And initially, the Dallas Cowboys, as we all know, were on a fantastic roll. From basically 90 to about 96, they pretty much ran the NFL. That's all there is to it. The beatdowns over the Buffalo Bills, the win over the Pittsburgh Steelers, they ran the NFL. But since 1996, the Dallas Cowboys have won 5 playoff games. 5, 6, whatever it is. The point of what I'm saying here is any other GM would have been fired probably 2 or 3 times over by now. And it's not just about the playoff wins. Remember how it all began? The whole debacle with Jimmy Johnson? Jerry Jones wanting so much credit that Jimmy Johnson was not prepared to give him. Credit that Jerry Jones demanded that he get. There was a whole story out there about Jimmy Johnson supposedly not toasting his glass to Jerry Jones and that kind of being the last straw type thing. But then he hired Barry Switzer after it ended badly with him and Jimmy Johnson. Then he hires Barry Switzer. And Troy Aikman will tell you that they were winning football games despite of him. That the team was just that good and that talented, but Troy Aikman never liked him, and he said there were a lot of other guys on that team that really never liked him either. That he just kind of willy-nilly whatever, didn't really seem to care, wasn't invested. Then they end up hiring Chan Gailey, went to the playoffs, got blown out, Gave him 2 seasons, fired him. He never really gave a reason, at least at that time, as to why he fired Chan Gailey. But he did. Just said that it was going to take a lot of time for the guys to get acclimated for the next season. Don't forget, right around that time, if I remember correctly, he told Vanity Fair that he could coach the Dallas Cowboys. Then he hired Dan Camps. That didn't last long. Then he hired Bill Parcells. And at the risk of becoming irrelevant, I think that was maybe why he gave T.O. such favoritism. Because remember, the whole thing with Bill Parcells and T.O. was doing what he always did. Hey, man, I'm open. Hey, man, I'm always open. Hey, man, we need to draw up more plays for me. And it got to the point where T.O. went to Jerry Jones and said, hey, I'm not getting enough. I'm not getting the ball enough. We're not drawing plays up specifically for me. I need something to happen here. Something's got to give. And then, of course, the GM, Jerry Jones, he went, hey, Bill, here's what we need to do. Parcells told him, look, this is not how I coach. Don't forget camp when, in August before the season began, during the preseason when T.O. was supposedly recovering from a hamstring, and he had been secretly fined by the Dallas Cowboys because he didn't show up to rehab, then he didn't show up to a film session, and it got leaked, and Jerry was heated over that. Absolutely pissed. Oh, if I find out who leaked that information. So, of course, it doesn't work out with him and Bill Parcells, which, by the way, he let Des Bryant go. Even after he let T.O. do whatever he wanted to do, he let Des Bryant just leave. And even then, he never really left because he just wanted another contract and he wanted money. The GM of that football team, Jerry Jones, said, nah, bro, we're good. 3 1,000-plus yard seasons in a row. Said, no, thank you. Yeah, okay, Brody. And it's not just any of that. I mean, all the draft bust. And we all know that when all was said and done, he hired Jason Garrett because Jason Garrett was a yes man. Jason Garrett was just like, yeah, sure, whatever you want. Yeah, it's fine, cool, whatever, dude. You're the man, Jerry. That's why he hired him. And don't forget, there have been receivers and other players that have come out during that time frame with Tony Romo where they said, yeah, no, Jason Garrett was sabotaging Tony Romo. He was jealous of Romo, but he knew which butt to kiss, didn't he? Jerry Jones. Look, the reality of the situation is it's okay to have an ego. It's okay to walk around with the big dick mentality, man. At the end of the day, I don't think anybody really gives a damn about any of that. You know, I mean, I remember I saw him on, the Saturday morning game day show, ESPN. I mean, he just couldn't wait. They were having him do the game day predictions. He was the guest picker. He immediately just started going in about this and this and this. And they were like, bro, we've only got a little bit of time here. He just wants to prove so bad that he knows the game of football. Well, if you want to prove so bad that you know the game of football, then be the owner that Pat Bowlen was. Pat Bowlen let everybody do what they needed to do. He let GMs do GM stuff. He let coaches do coaching things. He let players do player stuff. He wasn't sitting around trying to manipulate every situation and control everything and everyone. And then say there's nobody that could do this job better than me. I mean, Pat Bowlen, in the deal that he created with TV networks, was what really sparked the NFL to get it to the level that it is today. But you didn't see Pat Bowlen running around bragging about everything that he did. Everybody loved him, respected him. And Jerry Jones wonders why he gets the heat that he does. Hell, it took him this long to work out a contract with CeeDee Lamb. 1,700 yards this past season on his way to his third consecutive 1,000-plus yard season. And it's, well, I just don't know. I mean, he's missed, but not need. I mean, all this BS, man. As if you do not need CeeDee Lamb. Are you kidding me? The way that he makes Dak Prescott look like he is a gamer. And you're going to sit around and just play the mind game of, well, we don't know. What is there to know? What is there to know? 1,700 yards. Best season yet. His first year, he damn near had 1,000. Second year, over it. Third year, well over it. Fourth year, way over it. Come on, man. The fact that it took this long to get that deal done should pretty much tell everybody everything that they need to know about Jerry Jones, okay? But at least he finally did the right thing. I will give him that because CeeDee has absolutely earned that contract. What's he going to get? $136 million, $100 million guaranteed. Second biggest wide receiver contract in the history of the NFL. Damn right he deserves it. So there's that. So the NFL, they're going to use a new device called Strike to measure essentially the hardness of NFL football stadiums in terms of obviously turf and grass and all that stuff. In fact, here is a quote from Nick Papaz, who, by the way, he's pretty much, let's just call him the main grounds guy for the NFL. And I quote, "We're going to come up with our own performance specification document for the NFL field. Ultimately, it will be a regulatory document that says, hey, look, an NFL field should meet these standards. Right now, our standards have been somewhat vague, but it's because we didn't want to just arbitrarily adopt something that could be wrong." End quote. So what is Strike and what is it really supposed to do? Well, it's kind of like this Clegg device that they've already got. Basically, the Strike device is going to measure the energy absorption when a player puts their foot down on it, right? So how much energy is it taking in and then I guess outputting back when a player steps their foot down? In other words, when they get tackled, when they put their foot on the ground, when they do any of these things, how much energy is it really taking in? Is it able to absolutely absorb it? In other words, you're going to bounce off the mat or not, bro. But here's the thing, though, right? So they got this new device, and they're going to start working with it, basically kind of testing it this season, but they're not going to use any of the measurements. They're still going to use the original Clegg device that they've been using for years. Look, all of this could be easily avoided if you did one simple thing. Number one, I agree with what he said about creating a standard, right? This is what we need. This is what the absorption should be and all that good stuff. And I'm with all that. But when you're trying to create artificial turf, it doesn't matter. It's the idea behind it, honestly, is the fact that it just makes everybody faster. And the maintenance is a lot lower. But the reality of the situation is, if you were to just say one of the conditions of having an NFL stadium is better be grass, then I think that would eliminate a lot of this BS. You know, here's the problem with anything and everything. Overcomplicating. Overthinking. What happened to the term KISS? Keep it simple, stupid. That's it. Keep it simple, stupid. KISS. I mean, I've done warehouse work. I've worked in restaurants, and that's always been a thing. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. It's weird that that's a concept, right? It's weird that that's a thing, right? But it absolutely should be a thing, especially when it comes to matters like this. Look, I don't blame turf for what happened to Aaron Rodgers a season ago. And I don't necessarily blame turf for anybody getting hurt. Being injured is something that is built in to being an athlete in a physical game like football. It's just the nature of the beast. It's the way that it is. There's no definitive way to ever stop injuries from completely happening. There's no possibility, right? But what can we do to minimize it, especially with long-term effects? Look, when I did my piece about 9-10 years ago on concussions in the NFL and really just kind of injuries as a whole, one of the things that Dr. Roush, the physician that I interviewed, said was, look, when it comes to playing football, I don't think you will suffer a major injury. It's not something that is inevitable, right? Then he went on to also tell me when it comes to injuries, I'm not necessarily worried about an initial injury. I'm worried about the accumulative effect. In other words, the continuous re-injuring of a specific area of the body, the brain, whatever the case may be, right? It's beginning to build up. How many times have we seen an athlete get a sprained ankle and then it just becomes a thing for the rest of their career? I mean, the easy example is John Elway. After he got hurt, he continued to play on it. Then he really injured it bad when Andre Tippett hit him in the AFC divisional game when the Broncos are playing the Patriots. And then the next week he played on it with the Cleveland Browns. And then he played on it again 2 weeks later in the Super Bowl against the New York Giants. And really, basically, he was never the same. I mean, everybody noticed that limp from John Elway. Come on. The reality is it's built in. You're going to get hurt, but accumulative is what we're talking about here. Re-injuring the same thing more than once. Continuous brain trauma. You continually get concussions. You continuously hurt your elbow, your shoulder, whatever the case may be, right? I mean, you know, as much as I love football and I love the hits and everything, I mean, man, it is so sad when I saw Earl Campbell, man could barely even walk. NFL legend, all-time great, could barely walk. It's not fair. And a lot of their games were played in the Houston Astrodome on that turf. You know, and I remember a quote from Earl Campbell. His doctor told him, look, man, you just beat that body and beat that body. I personally believe that grass is safer than AstroTurf to play on. And if anybody's ever played on AstroTurf, a lot of people will tell you they'd rather play on cement than that stuff. And it doesn't matter. All the advancements over the years and all that stuff, it's like playing on cement. It is hard surface. I personally would like to see everybody go to grass. Softer to land on. Hell, to me, it's easier to turn and twist and all that stuff. And I mean, if you're going to be playing in rainy conditions, I'd rather be able to stick my cleat in the ground into some good mud than that AstroTurf. But that's just me. I think a lot of players would tell you the same. Some of them maybe would tell you different. But, you know, even that's become a thing in the NFL, right? No. Everything should be played in a dome. I mean, that's what Kurt Warner thinks. Everything should be done in a dome. Of course, I understand his opinion is biased to the fullest degree. But his whole thing about it is weather. It's really even. You're going to get the best out of everybody. When you win, it's the real deal. Well, it's football, bro. There was a time when the Ice Bowl happened. Come on. It's okay. Especially with the advancements now and the uniforms and all the undergear and all that stuff that you wear. Easy to make warm conditions. Me personally, I think if they switched to grass and said, look, These have to be your conditions. This is how you have to maintain the grass. This is universal across the NFL. It would help a lot. Again, you are never going to stop injuries from happening, right? It's never going to happen. Can't stop it from happening. It will happen. It's always going to happen. It's the way that it is. But we can certainly minimize it as much as possible. I don't believe that there's anything out there that I've seen that I think to myself, that's definitive on turf. Not to me. All right, so Drake May. Coach Mayo says that May has outperformed Jacoby Brissett. And there's this whole thing right now, right, about whether or not Drake May is going to start and how long would it be, and the Patriots not really wanting to do it, and they want to give him time and all that stuff. You know, it's gone to the point where you've even had Bill Parcells, who we just talked about a little bit ago, chime in on it. And if there's anybody who has a right to do so, it's definitely the GOAT. A couple of Super Bowls with the Giants, went to a Super Bowl with the Patriots, turned both of those football teams around. So if there's anybody who gets to say something, it's definitely him. He drafted Drew Brees, and he said, look, you are responsible as an organization. Your responsibility is to the guy that you draft. Now, I've been saying this for years, and I feel good about it because Bill Parcells has said it. I'm gravy, baby. My thing is about Drake May, and has always been about Drake May, especially watching him a season ago. I mean, there are plays out there, literally, and I mean this, literally, where he could be under duress. Somebody is about to bring him to the ground, and he will just willy-nilly throw that thing up. Now, sometimes he's gotten really lucky, and it has worked out for him. And at the collegiate level, crazy like that's going to happen sometimes. And what can you do? It's going to make a guy look like he's really that good. And somebody out there is going to go, well, that's just the quarterback knowing where his guys are. No. At that point, everybody has broke off their routes. Everybody. He's hesitant with his throws. He definitely eyes down his guys. It's just, I don't see Drake making it, if I'm being honest with you. The fact that he went that high in the draft still blows my ever-living mind. Still blows my mind, man. But here's the thing, right? If you really believe that he is going to succeed, you believe this, you got to give him time. That's just all there is to it. Look, we could talk about the guys like Ben Roethlisberger who came in and immediately made an impact. We could talk about C.J. Stroud came in, immediately make an impact. We could talk about Tom Brady came in, immediately made an impact. We could do a little bit of that. But C.J. Stroud hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, has he? We don't know what his career is going to look like. I love C.J. Stroud. What he did a season ago was phenomenal. Do not get me messed up for 1 second. Phenomenal. But the rest has yet to be seen. Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre. All these guys have had to be on the bench before. Every one of them. And it paid off major dividends. Major dividends. If you really think he's the guy, you got to let him sit. It doesn't matter if you're to a point where you are 3-9 and you know the season is tanked. It's done. It's over with. Does not matter. You have got to let him sit. You can't risk injury. You can't risk his confidence. None of it. And to me, if I'm being really honest with you, and I mean really, really, Jacoby Brissett is the better quarterback. He's the better option. We are leaning way too high on preseason right now. Way too high. I love preseason football. I love guys who make a name for themselves. I've talked about it over and over again, the Terrell Davises of the world. I love that stuff. But we cannot put all the eggs into one basket and create emphasis on what somebody has done in the preseason. I mean, wasn't it the Browns or the Lions that undefeated in the preseason and didn't even win a football game? To sit there and say, hey, predicated upon this is, I like the game experience of Jacoby Brissett. Seriously an underrated quarterback, man. He can win you some football games. You get the right system, you get the right offense. Jacoby's a solid dude. I'm not saying he's great. I'm not going to put him anywhere near top 20, top 25 quarterbacks in the NFL, but he is the better option. And he is the better quarterback. And if he's not that good and he's the better quarterback, what does that really tell you? I mean, I'm just saying, I really don't think that you start Drake May. I just don't. I think if you start Drake May, what happens is you get one or two games where he does really well. Whether they win or lose, I think he performs well. And then eventually that one thing happens and it just tanks him. You just got to give him time. You got to give him time to be around the NFL, to learn the playbook, to learn the system, to be in the locker room, to get, in with the guys, all that stuff, man. I know that Jared Mayo wants to protect his job, and he's probably worried that maybe one bad year could destroy everything. If I'm being honest, I think Robert Kraft would give him a couple of years. It would be logical to do so. Since Tom Brady left, the team has been in shambles. I know that winning is addicting because the attention and the money and everything else that you get from it is very addicting. But at some point, you have to back off a little bit and go, okay, we're just going to concede to the fact that we are rebuilding. We got to figure it out. Let's give a new coach a little bit of time and see what he can do. Real simple. So Juju is back with the Chiefs again. Look, I think people are probably going to make too big of a deal of this than it really is. I mean, that's just me. I'm just being honest. Look, his best seasons have been with Big Ben and Patrick Mahomes. Okay? Now, I understand that last year, Mac Jones was his quarterback. I get that. Okay? But, Mike Evans has had Josh McCown throwing him the football. He's had Jameis Winston throwing him the football. All right. He's had Mike Glennon throwing him the football. I mean, let's be honest. Receivers can make quarterbacks look a little bit better than they are, right? It can happen. QBs can make receivers look better than they are. That can happen too. And I think in the case of Juju, if I'm being honest with you, that may have been the case. I think that Big Ben and Patrick Mahomes have potentially made him look a little bit better than he really is. Maybe it was a system thing in Pittsburgh. Maybe it was a system thing in Kansas City. I don't know. Now, if you're excited about the possibility of the reconnection, and you say, well, dude, all that points to this is a really good idea from the Chiefs. Get a familiar guy back. He knows how to work with Andy Reid. He pretty much knows what to expect from Patrick Mahomes. He knows what to expect from Juju. He's familiar with the system. He's familiar with a lot of guys still in the locker room, Kelsey, etc. If you want to take that standpoint, I don't really take an issue with it. But I still think that it could be overblown because I don't know that he comes out and starts right away. But I mean, and look, at the end of the day, he's no worse than Tony, right? But it's weird to say, though, that I don't even know that he would start over Tony. Now, I'm just kind of keeping it a buck. I think he's probably option number 2 or 3. Now, obviously, that receiving core had a lot of problems. And I know that people are tired of the jock riding of number 15, but the reality of the situation is They were up there in terms of the tops in the NFL in drop passes a season ago. And there were some glaring drop plays, especially from Tony. If you remember the first game against the Detroit Lions alone, it was his drop that allowed Detroit to take the interception back for a touchdown. Should have been a lot of catches, a lot of plays made from Tony. At some point, you got to do something, right? So you bring in somebody that you hope is going to be able to hold on to the fucking ball. I mean, that's really what's going on here. And if you want a three-peat, something that nobody has ever done, not in the Super Bowl era, well, maybe this is the way to go. But me personally, I think it's overblown. I think that Kansas City would have been fine without him, but I don't have a problem with it either. I don't have a problem with them beefing up the receiving core. Guys get hurt. Guys don't play well, whatever the case may be. You got somebody in there, like I said, that already knows kind of how things function around there. At the end of the day, it's not a bad thing. It's just not a great thing, if that makes sense. All right, real quick here. Anthony Edwards, I'm sure everybody's seen the quotes from him popping off, talking about how this dream team would annihilate the dream team that had Magic and MJ, saying nobody had skills like we do. I think he's been listening to Colin Cowherd a little too much, if you ask me. But regardless, he was just like, if you look at it, only MJ had skill. Well, of course, Magic said he's not going to listen to anybody that hasn't won a championship. He's like, bro doesn't have one in college. He doesn't have one in the NBA, and I don't even know if he's got one in high school. Well, that pretty much sums it up there for Magic, doesn't it? Look, I get where Magic's coming from. And let's keep it a buck. I mean, that's the lowest hanging fruit, right? It's right there. Me personally, I wouldn't take it that far with Ant, but I would say maybe go back and rewatch Magic Johnson's highlights, bro. Jokic and some of the guys that he currently plays with have said, look, I watched Magic Johnson growing up. That was my guy. That was the dude that I looked to. I mean, that pretty much sums that up, doesn't it? Larry Bird? Larry Bird didn't have skill? Come on, what? He's slow. Jokic ain't fast, my man. Come on now. I mean, seriously? Jokic ain't exactly... Look, let's put it like this. No time soon is either Tyreek or Noah Lyle going to be challenged Jokic to a 40-yard dash. That ain't going to happen. That dude walks around like a banana. Are you serious right now? Come on, man. Stop the cap, bro. To say that those guys don't have skill, that's just ridiculous. And I could see where Magic would take insult to it. Absolutely. MJ, Magic, Larry, you damn right they had skill. Patrick Ewing, for a guy his size, the way he was able to move. Come on, man. His free throw deal alone. Remember Patrick Ewing? He would be at the free throw line and then he would hesitate before the shot. Come on. Really? Are we talking about this? I guess people forget the ability that Barkley had to run the floor. I just get tired of the idea that guys from back then were all plumbers and bums. You know what happened? The Olympics showcased what those guys could really do as a team. It was able to showcase their actual skills because the rules were different. And the way that everybody plays defense over there is different. It's not that difficult to acknowledge. Come on, man. I know that what happened was when those guys got their shot to show what they can really do, they showed out. And the thing is games back then weren't being played and all over the place the way that they are now. I mean, I remember very vividly Team USA laying the wood to some scrub team over there, basically. That's what they made them look like. And they piped in and they said, look, we know you guys want to watch basketball, but they've got this game under control. We're going to switch to some other stuff. That's how badly they were beating them. How many times did Team USA have to come back from double-digit leads this Olympic? Never happened with those guys. And it wouldn't have happened. Smacked everybody around. Come on. All right, everybody, I am Drew Duncan. The show is fired up, and we are live. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Take a device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan, iTunes, iHeart, wherever you're listening, I am there. Do not forget that Friday is our MMA day. Our MMA insider, Austin Ford, is going to be joining us to talk all things MMA. Of course, Thursday, we're going to be getting into looking at college football. Friday, obviously, we're going to be talking about Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffs. In the meantime, your local programming is next. Don't you dare touch that dial.